Hey everybody, welcome again to another episode of the ShopNotes Podcast. I'm Phil from ShopNotes Magazine, joined by Logan and John. Today is episode number 166. We're going to do a John Doyle Design challenge today. Check in with comments and questions from last episode and give like a little sneak peek of some of the other projects that are going on around here for Woodsmith, ShopNotes, and Popular Woodworking. So stick around and I hope you enjoy the show. The word from our sponsor: you want a glue that you can trust, and fortunately Titebond has the glue you need to get the job done with confidence. From interior glues with strong initial tack and short clamp time to exterior glues with exceptional strength and water resistance, look to Titebond, the right glue for your next project. For more information, visit titebond.com.
This podcast is also brought to you by Bowl of Thumbtacks. Bowl of Thumbtacks. What I use to entertain myself when Logan goes off on a rant.
I have never went off on a tangent, John.
Oh, my goodness. That's
today.
Super funny.
Yeah. Maybe I should.
My heart.
Yeah.
Apparently I cut myself shaving today. All right.
Now you can see it. Now we can all see it.
Now I can't not see it.
Right.
All right. A couple of comments on last week's podcast titled Equal Parts Scorn and Praise. Puppy Doc said, when I visited the shop back in July, you know, the day that Phil and Logan ran and hid, I had the fortune of meeting Chris and seeing the birdhouse firsthand in production. I have to say, wow. I'm still stunned and amazed at how cool that project was looking. His creative mind is just awe-inspiring. Walter Riggs says, green and gray headphones? That's just an obvious Festool product placement. Do they come with a sustainer?
It's a mini stainer.
Yeah, way to sell out.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the shop tour on one of these podcasts, Logan. And then Music by Mark writes, do you think you might make a separate channel for the podcast discussions versus the project videos?
Nope.
That sounds like work.
Yeah. We do have a separate playlist. So if you come to the Woodsmith shop or the Woodsmith channel and then click on playlists, you'll get the ShopNotes podcast playlist and you'll be able to find episodes there relatively quickly.
Or if he's trying to avoid them, just don't click on that playlist.
Right. Yeah, that's another. Yeah, if you're trying to just stay with projects, that's also a good idea. That's true. I never really thought of it. These headphones do have a Festool sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Festool stank to them.
Right. They're actually leftover ones from when my son was doing online school during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And for being cheapo Target headphones, they actually work pretty well. I'm kind of surprised.
And I will say, not being facetious or anything, but Festool did just release their earbuds. So.
Oh, they do have earbuds. Okay.
I don't have a set, but they did release them.
Yeah.
I'm surprised if those are from your son.
Sponsored.
They're not like some sort of like gamer headphones with the microphone on them. And
oh no, I think technically there is a microphone.
Oh yeah, there is
there, but it's my fancy laptop does not recognize the fact that these are headphones and a microphone in one. So I got to do the Saturday night or the evening talk show microphone,
which is a better microphone, anyways.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly true. The magic of publishing is constantly having the simultaneous feeling of accomplishment and being behind all at once. In the sense that you get a magazine done and it's like, well done, everybody. We got this one out the door.
Yep.
Now we got to do the next one.
Yep. It's basically like every time you get one thing done, you get two more things assigned to you.
Yeah.
So it's like drowning in a sea of magazines and getting a magazine life raft thrown at you.
Very similar to that.
Yeah.
Well, and thinking about it, we're the only ones that have multiple, of the woodworking magazines around, we're the only ones that have multiple titles.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So those slackers over at Wood and Fine Woodworking, man,
Right.
yeah, I'm talking to you guys.
Yeah,
we
we're
just
calling
do
you out.
one issue every other month.
Ben
We're doing
Strano.
3 magazines every 2 months.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
And it's our own fault.
it is.
We asked for this.
Well, we should have said that, John. We just lost all sympathy.
Yeah.
Right. We're junkies. We just can't get enough. So anyway, one of the projects that we have working on, even though we're still on the trailing end of August here, is a set of Christmas tree ornaments that Chris Fitch designed. So we're going to start. There are 5 ornaments that we're going to show. And I'm thinking right now that we're going to kind of do it like simplest to more complex. So here's the simple one. Mm-hmm. Straight cone. I'll put a photo of this on the show notes page with some little dots that are put in with a little plug cutter and some plugs. I think they're Paduke dots currently.
They look like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a fun one. And then we're going to step up in technique just a little. This one is, again, just a solid piece of wood turned into kind of a conical tapered shape. And then using a parting tool, just kind of diving in straight to make a series of, grooves around it to indicate branches. It's got a very, very Jetsons kind of mod feel to it. And then that outside section is painted. This one's walnut.
That feels like a Lego tree from here.
It does, yes.
It 100%. That's exactly what that is.
If you had Lego trees growing up.
Yeah. Then we have 2 guys that are kind of related. One is, instead of just being a straight taper, has a series of increasing sized curves cut into it to indicate the branches, which I think is a cool. And this one has a glued in walnut trunk on it. So the rest of it I think is, I don't know, is that even just poplar or basswood maybe?
Yeah.
It's a light colored wood. Yeah, light colored wood. But I like the rounded look to it. It's kind of fun.
Kind of like a waterfall OG look.
Yes, that's a good way to look at it. It's like a waterfall OG. It also has a little bit of an Eastern Orthodox kind of like onion dome kind of look to it.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Then the other one is straight, but has little graduated cones. But this one, the blank, was glued up square and then cut at 45 degrees, and little thin pieces of walnut were glued into the blank. So there's a real sloping kind of fun look of how those walnut inlays did. A few years ago on the TV show, we did a series of candlesticks where we put like these inlay pieces in and clamped it together and then bandsawed it apart. That kind of reminds me of that. Mm-hmm. And then the final one,
Celtic knot style.
Yeah. The final one, this one's just straight up cherry. And again, has the kind of your standard graduated cones look to it. But at the top is a star. And the star is actually part of the main blank. And it gets turned into its round form and then split down the sides to reveal the star, which is super cool to me as a fun little technique. And I'm going to have to take a photo of Chris's instructions to Mark on how to do this, because Chris just kind of like drew a circle around the star on the plans and then drew 2 straight lines. Neat. That's it. That's how you do it. What more do you need?
Yeah.
Yep.
Explains itself.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what's going on. It kind of reminded the technique of making the star kind of reminded me of a YouTube video I saw years ago. I think it was from Germany, where they just showed some guy with a lathe and he's turning kind of like this big ring on the lathe. And he's making all these weird cuts on it on the inside and on the outside. And it's like, this is like the dumbest bowl I have ever seen. Pulls it off the lathe, sets it down, and takes this big honking chisel and just whacks out pieces, what looks like a bundt cake kind of thing. And then each of those pieces, when you turn it to the side, suddenly is like animals from a Noah's Ark kind of toy set.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of guys do that where they'll do the ring and then slice it on the bandsaw, or maybe just take a wedge out of it, and they're pretty cool. Like, I've never had a desire to do one, but they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always find it surreal, and I bet people don't realize this, but a lot of times for our like holiday projects, like those Christmas trees, we're photographing those in July and August to get those into the end of year issues. So we have Christmas trees set up in our studio a lot of times, in the summer. And then our outdoor projects, a lot of times we have to do those a year in advance because we have to photograph them outdoors when it's nice weather, or we're trying to get those in end of summer.
We're working on those issues during the fall usually, so it's like you can't. It's weird placement to do a outdoor project in the for the summer issue, but all the leaves are like golden.
Right.
Yeah.
A little weird.
So we either have to fake that in the studio or go to the botanical center or greenhouses and shoot those indoors and try to fake the outdoors type of thing. So it's a struggle.
What the funny part from a writing standpoint is, so we'll design and photograph and build that project now or earlier for next year, so that we have in the kind of the outdoor months where that would be like a natural fit for it. But it was done a year ago, so you just totally don't even remember, like, what happened to that project. And then you have to try and talk to the builders about how they built it. And Steve and Mark have project amnesia. Like, they build something and it just goes away when they start on the next one.
Yeah, we had a outdoor furniture set a few years ago that it felt like it was being built over an entire year. And Dana Myers, the shop builder, was building it, and he was trying to retire and leave, and then like it was getting written the next summer, and it was just one of those.
I wrote that one too.
Yeah. So that one was a struggle. So,
and to be fair, I'm friends with Dana. He had unorthodox ways of doing stuff.
Yeah.
So sometimes he's like, I think this is how I did it. I'm like,
did you?
Okay. Did you? Because that's weird.
Yeah.
And I mean, it makes sense, but it's weird.
Yeah. A lot of self-taught techniques of like kind of just figuring it out, and it worked. So.
No, I like Dana a lot, just for that very reason, that he was not very conformist on how he did stuff.
Yep.
I think you can learn a lot from yourself and other people with that kind of ingenuity, because they'll do stuff in ways you hadn't thought of previously. So it's always interesting.
All right. Speaking of something interesting, one of the things that I wanted to do here today is find a practical example to describe our design process a little bit. And this is where I'm going to put John Doyle on the spot, because he does better under pressure.
Yeah.
And in a little bit of a panic. So I have this book. I've shown it on the podcast before. It's called Wegener, Just One Good Chair. And it's about Hans Wegener, the Danish designer. And I had this on my wish list for a book, or for quite some time, just because of this guy was kind of a very interesting character and designed really cool projects. Anyway, we've talked about on the podcast how I usually don't like making chairs. especially for a dining table, because it's not one project. It's 6 projects or more. However, I was flipping through this book again, and a couple of chairs designs caught my eye. And it's basically what are sometimes categorized as like his cattle chairs. So I'm going to take photos of this, put it up on the show notes page. But for the people watching on the radio, this one is actually called the cow horn chair. It's a real simple design, 4 rounded legs, a couple of rounded stretchers, a woven seat, and then the back has like a curved shape to it that ends in not full armrests. They're more like just elbow rests. And those elbow rests have that cow horn shape to it. There's a couple other ones here I'm just going to show.
Slight splay to the legs, it looks like.
Yeah, just a very slight splay. All right, so here are 2 other ones. One there. And then that one has like metal legs because he did a few of them for, industrial production. There's one that's the buffalo chair that has much larger, and it's padded and upholstered. He also did one, I want to quick find it. Yeah, so there's like the long, short-horned bull chair, long-horned bull chair, all very familiar. And he even did one that was supposed to stack that had just 3 legs to it, which was kind of a fun design. So what I'd like to do is just try making one just to see how comfortable it would be. And whether I could actually pull it off is probably the larger issue. So the question that I would have for you, John, as a designer, because I know you've done something similar to this, is where would you start on coming up with a project that was in that family, but kind of making it your own all at the same time?
I'd have to say, and my grandma used to say this, it's like if you wanted to have a baby in Antarctica, you just wouldn't. You just don't. Don't do that. So,
your grandma's a very wise woman.
Yeah. So, the way I understand, I've never built a chair.
Okay.
I've never built a guitar, but the way I would understand it is like chairs and guitars chairs are like the guitars of the furniture world, because you have like all these jigs and specialized tools, and each kind of part of the chair serves a different purpose. And you could go through all of the process of doing all those mini projects, and you get done, and you're quickly going to know if it worked or not. Like you could do all those things, and you build the chair, and
but you wouldn't even necessarily.
This isn't. It looks like.
But you wouldn't know until it's done either.
Until it's done, until it's completely done, you'd be like, "Well, that design didn't work. It's it's like too high in the back, or like it just doesn't sit right." And so,
well, and another thing I think about chairs, and I've read this several times, to truly make a chair right, it has to be made for someone.
Right. Because everybody's kind of different. They have like you could have long legs and a short torso, or your back hits different, or the way your knees bend over the chair. So it's really hard to make something like that fits everyone. Yeah, and comfortably.
It's like that's why you can't. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever walked into like a dining or a like homemaker's furniture store and sat in their dining chairs. None of them they don't cradle you like a custom made chair does. And I don't know how many custom made chairs you guys have sat in, but like they just don't feel right because they're made to fit a bell curve of people. So
So I think if I were designing and building a chair, I would find existing chairs and have the people that are going to sit in them kind of, try different stuff out, and then, mimic dimensions and shapes and stuff like that off existing. Because it's hard to do that in a virtual space, design space where you're, drawing something. Or so I don't know. I've seen Dylan. I mean, he's our chair guy. He's done a lot of chairs, and he'll build prototypes out of, plywood and scraps and, try different things out. And so I think that's kind of, a direction you got to go, where you're prototyping things out of scraps or trying out existing furniture just to see comfort level and get dimensions and sizes and shapes and different things. So
thank you to Titebond. You want a glue that you can trust, and fortunately, Titebond has the glue you need to get the job done with confidence. From interior glues with strong initial tack and short clamp time, to exterior glues with exceptional strength and water resistance, look to Titebond, the right glue for your next project. For more information, visit titebond.com.
Yeah. Now, out of Dylan's chairs, just on that note, which one would you say is the most comfortable that we've featured in Woodsmith?
I kind of like the cowhide chair was different, but it's like also chairs have different purposes. Some are like for lounging, and some are for, sitting at a desk or sitting at a dining table or, that type of thing. So it's like, what's the purpose? And well, did he do the Welch 6 chair?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. That was all right. That one hit the back hit me a little low. It seemed like
it was a
like
little
in the
sharp on my back as well. Yeah.
And maybe that was just, you needed around the top of it type of thing. So,
and I think that was the case, because when we did the one on the TV show, I ended up rounding that back a little bit more. And I have that chair at home, and my wife uses it as her office chair, and she loves it.
Yeah. I liked the Campeche chair
the
most. I feel like it just needed just a hair more tilt forward, because I think it's like a beach lounging chair.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to kind of slide back into it, and then it's maybe hard to get out.
I just want a little bit further up. But and those are the type of things, like if you're doing chairs, those are the things you build one, and you're like, okay, this is what I want. I want it to lean forward a little bit. Because I think when we had the Campeche chair in the studio, I threw like a 2x6 underneath the back legs. I'm like, oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and there are designs, I think, that have been built. Look at some of Greg Pennington's chairs, or Brian Boggs, or whoever else that makes chairs. They sell plans, and those are really well designed chairs. I'm actually going to do 2 Democratic chairs this week with my buddy Rusty. That's coming up. Those are built on a plan that has been, for the most part, tested. Now you can, and I think in their plans you can point out, or I think there are things that are pointed out that it's like, hey, if you're a little bit taller, adjust these measurements. If you're a little bit shorter, adjust these measurements. If your butt's a little wider, make this a little wider. That type of thing. So, but those are a different type of chair than what you're looking at, Phil.
Yeah, but I also feel like there is a relationship between them, that there's a family resemblance. They're not a direct descendant, but they're from the same line in the sense of some of the construction details or the shaping are somewhat similar. So where this is coming from is we have had a set of dining chairs that we got at a kind of a big box place years ago. And for me, they're just not comfortable, and they're really heavy, and they have legs that have the corner bracket hanger bolt construction, which means they're constantly working loose. And it's like, you can tighten them as they loosen up over time. They loosen up all the time. That's how you need to rephrase that. So, and they're made out of some non-selective, ugly grain kind of material. So,
do you think is that a function of the wood changing that loosens it up? Because I don't think it's the bolt loosening over time.
No,
it's not like you put thread lock on it or something. It's just that the wood changes over time.
Yeah.
And becomes loose.
And I think that particular material does have it's more reactive, I guess, to humidity, in the sense that it seems like it's pretty noticeable. Some stuff I've done, and we've done as projects where you use that hanger bolt corner bracket kind of construction, and you cinch it down and it stays that way for years, possibly, before having to adjust it again. Whereas these, I kind of have to go at them probably once a year or more. Anyway, it was just a question that I had, because I know, John, that you've done projects where they're inspired by something else, but you've taken them in a different way. And I was just wondering how, like, what's that first step? Do you just kind of draw out overall dimensions?
Yeah.
And then start playing around with it?
Yeah, that's usually, I kind of get a rough size, kind of a rough sketch, and then it kind of goes from there, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Because I know when I design projects, I don't normally build prototypes. But again, I'm not very often / ever doing chairs.
Right.
Where there is such a interaction with the human body on it that, you're just not getting with a cabinet or, I mean, even beds that people use a lot, it's just a platform.
Right. And it's usually designed to a specific, mattress size, and so it's very constricted that way. But yeah, a lot of times designing stuff for the magazine, you're not trying to fit a specific space. You're just trying to build, a piece of furniture. But if I'm doing, for my house and I'm trying to get sizes or whatever, I might take like cardboard boxes and make them to the general size of what I'm thinking and put them in that space, and then kind of, live around that. And it's like, does that, size and shape make sense, type of thing? Or, if it's for a specific spot in my home. So
I can see that.
That'd be a strategy.
Is there ever a point where you guys make a concession on a design just to fit a function? Or where I'm going with that, so behind me is this shave horse that I just finished for the next issue of Popwood, right? It is a staked leg construction, so they're turned. You can't see, there's 2 legs back there, but that is one single leg up front. The reason for the 3 legs instead of 4 is that if you ever take it outside on uneven ground, it won't rock, right? It won't rock back and forth. What I did when I did the back legs is you have splay angle and you have rake angle. So it's the angle of the legs in plumb, and then the angle of the legs in relation to a center line. And as I was standing here building this thing over the weekend, I'm trying to figure out where I want the legs to land. The wider the stance, how's the best way to describe this? The wider the stance, the more stable it is, but the
easier it is to trip it out.
Well, exactly. I mean, yes, 100%. And the wider the stance, the more stress that is on the legs and the leg joint.
Right.
So I made a decision to keep the legs the splay angle is fairly low. So the feet are not much wider. They're about an inch wider or so than the actual outside of the shave horse. So it is not what I would call, like, I'm not gonna stand on it to do anything, because it's not what I would call a super stable design as far as, tipping left and right. But that was a decision I made to keep the legs pretty much within the footprint of the platform of the shave horse, because then when I push it up against the wall, it's pretty much all contained within that space.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody wants it a little bit stronger or a little bit more stable, they can splay them a little further. It's not that big a deal. The angles just change. Have you guys ever just been like, you know what? I know that there's a give and a take on what I'm doing, and I'm going to do this for this reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think designing stuff for the magazines, there's always concessions, because you're trying to fit to a page count. So you're either making small projects more complicated than they needed it to be, or complicated projects less complicated so they fit a page count. Yep. And Just, a lot of times materials or color, paint or stains. It's like, well, this doesn't really photograph well, so we got to do this color or this material or, that kind of thing. So just from the magazine standpoint, there's a lot of concessions that way. But
yeah, and that you make a good point with the stains and the finishes, because the Shave Horse's elm, like, it looks fine. It will look really good with a finish on it. Right. If this was just for my shop, I wouldn't put a finish on it. Like, right. It's gonna be what it is. It's gonna be fuzzy elm.
Yeah.
But I gotta put a finish on it because it's gonna photograph a little bit better. Yeah. So, that's another magazine decision.
Yeah. I mean, I've designed and built projects and made concessions because of materials. In terms of, I only have like that Pullman desk that I did, I only had X amount of clear pine for visible case elements. So that kind of drove whether I was going to, whether a piece of wood ended up being somewhat more visible or less visible, or gluing up drawer fronts instead of having a single piece drawer front, doing a book match or something like that.
Yeah.
I've also made projects smaller because of that. Like that sideboard I did for my sister. That was that's, I think, in the current issue or last issue of Popular Woodworking. Yep. And that ended up being a little shorter and a little narrower than I wanted, not as deep as I wanted, just because of the material that I had. I could do it in 2 boards. I think I did the top in 2 or 3 boards, and that was about as wide as I could go because I was dealing with, sapwood or knots or something else that constrained what that final glue up could be.
Yeah, I think we found the same thing as we're building projects like for the TV show, and we're following the original plans. We'll have the materials, and it's like, well, I can't quite get, the full, like, gluing something up, or you're trying to work around knots or, different things. You're like, well, it's going to be a 1/2 inch narrower than what the plans say, but nobody's ever going to know. It's just, you're kind of building to the materials you have. And same as in the design process, you'll kind of plan something out, and it's like, well, if I, shrink this down a 1/2 inch, I can get it all out of one sheet of plywood versus, getting into the next sheet. And so that's kind of a process too, is working around material constraints like plywood or just the materials you have on hand. So you can always make those changes.
Yep. And to be okay with that. Like, it's not a big deal. I've had that in classes where we're building a project and somebody, dorks up an edge for something. And it's like, well, we're just going to rip it a little bit narrower, and your tool tote or wall shelf or whatever is going to be, 5.5 inches deep and not 6 inches deep. And they're all kind of beat up about it, but it's like,
right. But you're like, the original designer didn't really care. They were just going for round numbers.
Yeah.
to appease the artist and the editor, because they didn't want to put in the fraction. So it's just, it's like the lines on the road. They're just a suggestion, So.
Yep. I love it. I've also had a project where I did a carved bowl for my wife. And it was one of the first ones that I did. And it ended up being out of Chinese elm. And it got done to the level that it currently is simply because I could not take it anymore. The Chinese elm, as a function of how they grow, draw up a lot of silicas from the ground.
Yep.
And embed those into the wood, which instantly dulls carving tools and it's the grain is interlocked. So it never really split or took decent shaving. So it was just kind of like chipping away at this thing. And I built it mostly during the summer, and it was really humid that summer. And there's a lot of sweat, literally, in this project. So, and I got it to a form where the form overall is nice, but if you start, doing the human caliper thing, it's a little chunky on the sides and bottom, where it probably could have benefited from being a little bit more elegant, but I like it. It's pretty cool. It holds napkins on our dining room table now. And
oh, so it's not your pizza dough bowl?
No,
the embedded sweat's the secret, the Huber family recipe.
Yeah. That's the salt in it,
Yes,
right.
It's not Amish bread. It's Huber bread.
Yeah. It's literally alive still.
Yuck.
So there you go. For everybody who's listening to this on the day that it gets broadcast, it's going to be the first day of Handworks.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you will catch us there. I'll be there Saturday. Logan's going to be there Friday and Saturday.
That's the plan. We'll see. We'll see if there's enough that I need to go Saturday too.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be hot.
Not as hot as what they were originally forecasting. At one point it was going to be 100 some, but still.
Yeah, warm. It's still 90, 98, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's a wet heat here in Iowa, so...
Yes. So you stay cool from the dampness.
Yeah. If we got a good breeze out on the prairie, I think we'll be okay. So come up to us and say hi, and we're happy to stand and chat. So, all right, I think that wraps up another episode. We're going to do a free plan for this issue, and it's going to be the shave horse that was built for Woodsmith Magazine a few years ago. I have it in my shop now, and I love it. And it's got a fun little adjustable jaw on it, which was an interesting tweak to a somewhat traditional design. So you can check that out on our show notes page. We'll also have a link for it on the YouTube page. Send us an email with your questions, comments, and smart remarks to woodsmith@woodsmith.com or on the YouTube page, where you can do all the liking, thumbs upping, high fiving, low fiving, shimmy shake that you want. So thanks for listening, everybody. See you next week. Bye.